Hi, my name is Chelsea. You can find me on all forms of social media at cowboychels. Cozy fantasy, by this point, is a very well-known genre. It's really taken off in the last 2 years. It bears the marks of having low stakes, a happy ending. This usually means no war, which is a popular trope within fantasy. Stories that are not cozy fantasy is that there's always this great war that needs to be fought. So it's kind of just slice of life that feature dragons and fae, orcs, and the like. A wonderful example of this is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, which I rated like 3.5 stars when I read it. I think the genre is lovely and I follow a lot of creators who really focus on it. The thing is, despite the fact that I do read a lot of fantasy nowadays, I don't necessarily find myself fully relaxing when I read cozy fantasy. It kind of feels like I'm stepping into someone else's idea of a good time. When I was growing up, I was a voracious reader. I have a lot of distinct memories of going to the library with my mom and her kind of pushing ghost stories into my hands because that's what she liked and she wanted me to read things that she found interesting as well. I was a ghost tour guide off and on from like 2016 to 2020 and I loved it. When I graduated, it was in anthropology with a focus on archaeology. I did all of my field work on graveyard archaeology because I love graveyard archaeology. It's incredibly interesting to me. I also love death lore, so death folklore, oral histories passed down between families on superstitions and how you know who will die next. I love that shit. I eat it up. So essentially, whenever I want a good cozy time, I'm way more likely to turn on a scary movie than I am to turn on a fantasy. Thus, I introduce to you the concept of cozy horror. My rules for cozy horror has to be spooky, creepy ooky, has to give me a little bit of a fright or at least be a little haunting. Once it crosses from the territory of creepy crawly to actually involving gore, that's when it leaves the cozy sphere for me. It's definitely like to everyone's own preference. For example, I can watch like any zombie movie and be perfectly fine, but once it's like an intentional act of pain inflicted between two humans, that is when it kind of crosses the line for me and I'm no longer interested. Additionally, it cannot be true crime. Anytime I dip my toes into the sphere of true crime, I'm very specific in how I do it. It has to be the victims of the experience telling their story. By that point, I'm like in full fucking tears, sobbing as I'm trying to like listen to a podcast and drive. I don't find that cozy. I don't think that's a fun experience. That leaves everything glorious and on this list. Here are the recommendations for cozy horror. Starting with cozy horror video games, I must begin with my absolute favorite. It is a joy to discuss Oxenfree. To describe Oxenfree, a group of people who have different relationships to each other. They're from a coastal town and they get stranded on an island that is supposed to be haunted. And it's one of those stories where you influence the storyline by the dialogue that you choose. So much fun to play. It definitely scared me at times. The lore is very interesting. I played it in 2020. It was one of the first games that made me actually interested in gaming besides Animal Crossing. I definitely came into the gaming sphere late in life and it just really blew me out of the water. I can't recommend it enough. Made by the creators of Oxenfree is Afterparty, where two friends die at their senior prom, I think it is, or it's their graduation party or whatever. They die, they don't know how they died, they get sent to hell. And to escape hell, they have to outdrink the devil. You become friends with a demon and meet a bunch of other cool characters. It is influenced a little bit by your dialogue, but not to the same degree as Oxenfree, so if that kind of stresses you out, you can go more of a straightforward path with Afterparty. The third game I'm hesitant to include because it's never scary, but it at times can be a little creepy. It's Cozy Grove. You are a scout who is sent to a location to help the community, and the community is full of ghosts. All of the ghosts are dead bears who had these full lives before they passed, but they can't really remember them, and they need you to help them retrieve their memories. My partner also recommends the game Little Nightmares, which they describe as Tim Burton-esque. So Regarding TV shows, there was an era of cozy horror shows that really lived and shined. Don't need to be recommended in 2023 because you've heard of them. I do want to add a few on. The K-drama Oh My Ghost is about a girl who gets hired as a chef at this restaurant. She interacts with a ghost who's a girl around her age, and that ghost possesses her on occasion, and together they have to navigate love and figure out why she still is on this earth. I also wouldn't be true to my heart, true to who I am, if I didn't discuss the fact that I have a huge VHS collection that I watch on my Hello Kitty CRTV. I find them extremely cozy. I love watching them. So I have actual scary ones, but they aren't like cozy to me. So these are the ones that I would recommend as cozy. The Haunting. Over the Garden Wall, I'm pretty sure they have on HBO if you're interested in streaming it, but I do recommend it in VHS. It's very fun. This is kind of where I like really need you to understand where I'm coming from with cozy horror. Cozy horror, just like cozy, supernatural. I love E.T. I think it's so fun. The Scooby-Doo Project, which is a parody put on by Cartoon Network. It aired on October 31st, 1999, and it's like a spoof of the Blair Witch Project featuring the Mystery Gang. Practical Magic. Need I say more? Also have this huge box set of DVDs. It's 50 horror classics and they're hilarious. They're so enjoyable. It of course has like 1960s Little Shop of Horrors, Monster from a Prehistoric Planet 1967. But it also has one of my absolute favorites. It's 1920s black and white silent film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So good. I'm pretty sure they have all of these and more at the local video rental store in my town. So if you have one of those in your area. Books. You've heard of it. Have you read it? I haven't. I've recommended this before, The Dead in the Dark. It's delicious, wonderful, spooky. Those things that I have on my TBR that I'm really excited to read. Where Darkness Blooms. A supernatural thriller about an eerie town where sunflowers whisper secrets and the land hungers for blood. I've meant to read this for the last 2 Halloweens and I haven't. The Once and Future Witches. Hi, I'm editing this video. Much like a new sapling growing bark for the first time, I too have perioral dermatitis and have to have cream on my face, so ignore that. I literally started this whole entire video theme based on the fact that I started reading the Gravekeeper series by Darcy Coates. I came across the second book, The Ravenous Dead, when I was visiting the last bookstore, and they have this whole little room designated to horror books, and I thought it was so fun. Yeah, it's like the definition of cozy horror. At times it is spooky, at times I am scared, but most of the time it's about like this cozy small town. Farewell. In regards to podcasts, one single podcast I'm going to recommend, even though it does break my rules. It's called Real Life Ghost Stories, and I really love it. I think the host does a wonderful job whenever she touches on a real death. I think she mourns the person and tells the story properly, but she does not exploit murder or true crime. She really kind of sticks to ghost stories and cryptids and the like. Her tone of voice is so soothing and eerie. There's also Spooky Tuesday, a horror movie podcast where they gab and discuss the plot and intricacies and sometimes like behind the scenes stories of horror movies. Teen Creeps is about pulp horror novels that are like specifically geared toward teens. So a lot of like R.L. Stine, Fear Street, things like that. I never read along. You don't have to read along. They kind of explain the plot and tell you about it sufficiently. The Magnus Archives, although being very old and very popular, I'm going to mention anyway because I think it's a wonderfully put together kind of Monster of the Week style with overarching arcs and seasons about a man who works within the archives of this supernatural investigative organization going through different stories that people have submitted when they interact with the supernatural. Thanks for spending this time with me. If you had as good of a time as I did, please feel free to subscribe and like. I'd love to have you around for more videos and look forward to some makeup reviews. I think I've got an all about Say Beauty and all about Tower 28 coming up. I also have some vlogs, so stay tuned.